Okay, so let's jump right in. We all know companies pour a ton of time, a ton of energy into creating the perfect strategy. But here's the real question. Why do so many of those amazing plans just fizzle out? End up as a forgotten file on a hard drive? The real trick isn't just having a strategy, it's actually making it happen. Today, we're going to talk about that gap, the execution gap, and how we can build a bridge over it using data to turn a static plan into a live, intelligent GPS for your business. This quote from Sun Tzu is a classic for a reason, and it pretty much hits the nail on the head. You can have the best teams doing amazing work, great tactics, but if it's not all pointed in the same direction by a clear strategy, it's just noise. It's chaos. But the reverse is also true. A brilliant strategy with no one to execute it, well, that's just a daydream. You absolutely need both. And here's the number that shows just how big that disconnect really is. Depending on the survey, somewhere between 60 and 80% of companies fail to execute their strategies. Just let that sink in for a second. The vast majority of well-laid plans don't make it. The problem isn't usually the vision, it's the follow-through, it's the execution. So that's the problem. It's a big one. The good news? There's a way to fix it. We don't have to be part of that statistic. There's actually a proven blueprint out there, a framework that's specifically designed to close that execution gap and turn big ideas into real, tangible results. And this is it, Kaplan Norton's 6-stage management system. Now, I know at first glance it might look a little complex, lots of boxes, lots of arrows. But here's the most important thing to see here. Strategy isn't a one-time thing. It's a continuous loop. This blueprint shows how you connect everything, from the boardroom all the way down to daily operations, into one aligned system. It's a practical architecture for making things happen. Let's just walk through the roadmap real quick. It starts where you'd expect. Develop the strategy, then plan it out. But then, and this is crucial, you have to align the whole organization and plan the actual day-to-day operations. And then you close the loop by monitoring what happens, learning from it, and, this is key, testing and adapting your strategy based on what you see in the real world. It's a living cycle. Okay, so that framework is the engine, right? It's a powerful one, but what we're talking about today is the high-octane fuel that makes it run faster and smarter. We're going to show how modern data tech, things like business intelligence, analytics, and AI, can supercharge this whole process. This is how we build that data-powered bridge, moving from just looking back at what happened to actually predicting what's next. So let's start with phase 1, which covers those first 2 stages, developing and planning the strategy. This is your foundation. You're basically asking 2 simple questions. Where are we right now, and where are we trying to go? And to answer those, you need a crystal clear picture of your past and present performance. And that is exactly where business intelligence, or BI, comes in. You can think of BI as your organization's dashboard and rearview mirror. It's all about descriptive power. It tells you what happened. How were sales last quarter? What are the operational trends? This historical data is the absolute bedrock for building meaningful strategy maps and scorecards. All right, you've got your plan. Now it's time for phase 2, alignment and operations. This is where the rubber really meets the road. It's about taking that high-level strategy and making sure every single team, every department, understands their part. It's about figuring out what resources you're going to need, the people, the budget, the time, to actually pull it off. Now, to do that well, you need to look forward, not just back. And this is where analytics steps up. If BI tells us what happened, predictive analytics helps us figure out what will happen. We can use it to forecast demand, model different budget scenarios, and make sure our resources are going to the right places. It's about shifting from educated guesses to data-driven predictions. And that brings us to phase 3, the most dynamic and, honestly, the most exciting part of the whole cycle: monitoring, learning, and adapting. There's a saying, no plan survives contact with the enemy. Well, it's true in business too. The market changes, competitors make moves, you have to be able to sense those shifts and adjust on the fly. This is where artificial intelligence is a total game changer. AI goes a step beyond. It doesn't just describe the past or predict the future, it can actually prescribe the best thing to do next. It's like having a smart sensor network constantly scanning the horizon for your business, detecting subtle changes, and suggesting how you should adapt. It answers the ultimate question, okay, so what should we do now? Okay, so we have this great framework, and we have the incredible technology to power it. But you might be wondering, does it actually work? What's the real-world payoff? Well, when a company gets this right, they earn what Kaplan and Norton call the execution premium.
Let's look at a real-world example, Marriott Vacation Club. After putting a system like this in place, their operating profit grew 20% a year for 4 years straight. But it's not just about the money. Look at this. Their easy-to-do business with score from customers shot up 70%. And maybe most importantly, the number of employees who actually understood the strategy went from 74% to a whopping 90%. That shows you what happens when everyone is pulling in the same direction.
And Marriott wasn't just some lucky fluke. The data backs us up big time. A survey found that companies with a formal process for this stuff, the winners, had a 70% chance of outperforming their competitors. Meanwhile, the companies without a process, the losers, were overwhelmingly stuck at average or below. The data couldn't be clearer. Having a system like this makes you 2 to 3 times more likely to win. So this all brings us to a really important final idea. You have to stop thinking of strategy execution as a project with a start and end date. It's not something you can just check off a to-do list. To really truly succeed, you have to treat it as a continuous, always-on system that's just part of your organization's DNA. So how do you manage a system like that? Well, a lot of the most successful companies create a dedicated team, often called an Office of Strategy Management, or OSM. Now, the OSM doesn't create the strategy. That's leadership's job. But they own the process. They're the architects, the conductors, making sure all the different parts are working in sync and pushing toward the same goal. And so that brings us to the final question I want to leave you with. Think about your own organization. Is your strategy a static map? One that was printed a year ago, folded up and put in a glove box? Or is it a live navigation system, powered by real-time data, constantly recalculating the best route to your destination? Because in a world we live in today, only the live system is going to get you there.